Cool. I think everything's
All right.
go.
All
Good
systems go.
morning.
All systems go. We've done, I don't even
Gosh,
know.
how many virtual sales meetings have we done now?
So let's see, this is September. We
So
didn't do July, but we started this in March.
March. So it's
Wow.
been a few.
So we're getting it down better.
We
So
are.
yeah, welcome.
Monitoring. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're all good. I know the behind the scenes is always so fun because we've got Zoom going, we've got Facebook Live going, we've got, PowerPoint going, and we've got a lot of different things.
We got a lot of technology
So
happening here.
awesome. But it looks like we've got 15 viewers this morning so far. We're just now hitting 10:01 a.m. So we'll give it another few seconds for everybody to get logged on and join the live feed here.
You've got our nice view from the tech center with the snow in the background.
Yeah, quite
That was crazy.
The early season storm.
Yeah.
A little bit of a cold snap
Hopefully
for
that
September.
helps some of the wildfires.
Yeah, contain that smoke.
Absolutely. And Erica LaBaff just commented, it feels like Christmas out there to me.
And it could be. This is the weirdest year. It could be Christmas and we don't even know it. We just happen to roll into it.
And it's so funny because I agree with Erica, and I'll piggyback on that. I actually put red on today because I was like, I'm kind of in the holiday spirit.
And I've got my green on, so it works.
Perfect.
That's
it's absolutely
awesome.
Perfect. So
now, Paul, how come I don't see you on Facebook Live?
That's a great question. There's so much technology going on. I don't know.
Well, what do you? Because you're the one you're showing the screen. What's on your screen on your?
So on screen right now, it's the Schusters.
Yeah, it is.
Full screen Zoom.
Oh yeah. So go to gallery.
I'm with you. Bear with me, guys.
Good morning, Mindy. Good morning, Kristen. Good morning, Rita. Good morning, Donna. All the way from Longmont.
Oh, nice.
All right.
So you got that, Paul, now?
Yep, I'm with you. Yep, I thought, yep.
There we go.
Good morning, Irene. Good morning, John. Good morning, Mark Baker. It's so good to
buddy.
see you online. So glad you could join us. Katie, Pam. I think I already said Julie. It's good to see all of you guys.
Cool. We're going to bring Scott Peterson in a second here. He's in the waiting room, so super excited to have Scott with us this morning. Legal counsel for Colorado Association of Realtors. If you ever talk to anyone on the hotline, he's on the legal
hotline.
Yeah,
not
our hotline, but the legal hotline. He mans that as well as does the legal bites and just really watches out for us at the higher level. So excited to have him. Let's I'll share my screen here, Paul, for a second and do the virtual sales and marketing meeting. We've got that. So welcome, new agents. Again, we're still not meeting in person, and maybe we bring that up to Scott, see if he's hearing anything out there. Yeah. So that might be a question. It's like, are we getting anywhere?
Any closer?
Yeah. But we do have some new agents. Rocky referred Tristan Kohlberg, and Kara referred Pete Owen. And welcome. If you guys are on, I'm glad to see you here. And then if you joined between the last sales meeting and this sales meeting of August, say hi.
Yeah.
We put your name up there, but we probably didn't get to see you on a meeting because we haven't had one since. So anyway, we'll get you your e-pins. So you can proudly wear those when you're out and about.
But yeah, throw a thumbs up in the comment section if any of you newer agents haven't attended a sales meeting and want to say hi. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah, definitely. So Scott Peterson, as I mentioned, if you have not had a class, he teaches classes, annual update he does. He usually does a 10 top things to look out for during the year, kind of risk reduction. It's entertaining and educational. But yeah, let's bring Scott in. What are we at? We're at 9:04. Bring him in and let's see what he's got to share with us today. So let me stop that share before I jump in. Oh, he's still there. Yeah, make sure he's still in my waiting room. Before I jump in there, any quick words that you have, Paul?
My only thought was for those new agents, be sure to check your mail because we are mailing those e-pins to you since we're not meeting in person. That was my quick comment there.
Perfect.
Good.
Awesome.
I'm glad those. Yeah, I was like, geez, we are getting those out, right? Because I
Yeah.
said I was going to do it, and I haven't done it. So it's like, of course, Paul's watching my back.
Gotcha.
We did say to Scott at 10 after, so we've got a couple minutes before we bring him on. He might be grabbing his coffee or something. So I want to pose one thing out there that I'm kind of hearing, and we hear it every year, and that's about motivation. And maybe, we've had summer, it's been exciting, it's been busy, and now we're coming into fall or winter. It feels like winter. And your motivation might be kind of waning a little bit. And so we hear people, I like maybe to buddy up with someone, or what can I do to find my motivation? And it's a great question, and it's something that many of us go through. And motivation is not something that you go find. It's something that you create. It's not something that you lost. Like one day I had it, and then
I lost my motivation.
Where did
Don't
that
we
go?
say that? I lost my motivation.
We do say that. And it's not the losing of the motivation. It's the losing of your purpose or your direction, or forgetting to remember what that why is. Why are you doing what you're doing? And whether it is in athletics, or it's in your business or personal relationships, a lot of us have goals and a purpose and a reason that's really driving us. If you're training for a marathon, which a lot of people were doing, or races, or whatever sport you were in, and all the sports were taken away, a lot of people are like, oh, do I still need to work out or train because I lost my why?
My
purpose. And sometimes those whys need to get changed so that you can stay invigorated. And it's more than just the competing. It was the process. It was the training. It was the getting better, the better. In this business, it's easy to lose your focus because it's a hard job and you get tired. It's a lot of work.
Or you have a tough client, or you get rejected and you don't get that listing, or the buyer doesn't get that offer on the house, and you just get beat down. And it's so easy just to lose that motivation.
Yeah. And it's remembering that why. And sometimes you need to take a class. Sometimes you need to go to a conference, and now they're online, obviously, but taking a Buffini course where we do talk about your why and how to figure out what it is that you're looking for and you're striving for. So if this isn't a Buffini push, but take a look at our Buffini. We got that coming up next month. But if you've lost your motivation, you can't find it.
We got to create it.
We've got to create it. So you need to go back and figure out why am I doing this? What purpose am I striving for? Are there trips in my life that I want to be able to achieve? I quit these other jobs that I've had in the past because I wanted my independence. I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to have higher income than somebody was telling me that I was worth. All these things that you did in leaving some other career behind and getting into this career, why did you do that? And you need to refocus and repurpose that this is why I did it. Now, how do I rededicate myself? How do I get back in the groove of making the calls, sending out the note cards, doing the pop buys, doing the phone calls, it's a hard job, but there has to be a strong purpose why behind that to make you get up every day and go do that. And I can't help you with that. Stacy can't help you. Your best friend can't help you with that. You need inside. It's something you've got to create. Somebody can't give it to you. But you can go take courses and reinvigorate to remember and remind yourself why you are doing these things, because we do need that. We do need, you hear that, oh, I went to a conference and it's the same old, it's the same old stuff.
But I got pumped up and I was so fired up, and the next 2 weeks I did everything, and then I just kind of drifted. and keeping plugged in during this time when we are slightly isolated. We're not doing the in-person meetings. We're not getting that adrenaline rush, seeing people and being invigorated in a group atmosphere. Stay plugged in with these virtual sales meetings, with our weekly Tuesday talks, with our mortgage minutes from Amir, with the different things that we're doing online, with the different title companies and the different classes we're offering, because that will help too.
Yeah, definitely. And if you go fishing, you got to get wet. You got to get in the river.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're feeling a little lack of motivation, you're not sure what to do, get in the river, like Stacy said, and attend classes, attend meetings, read real estate, stay on top of the publications, stay on top of what's going on, and you'll reignite why you're doing this industry, why you got into this. So that's our 3 cents. Our 3 cents.
Our 3 cents
on
unsolicited advice.
You can't find the motivation, but you can create it.
So let's all create a little extra motivation this week.
Yeah. Let's go get Scott. I'm so excited that we got Scott. We had to book Scott 6 months
in
out.
advance.
Yeah.
We talked
so we're bringing him in.
Ago.
We got Scott connecting to audio. Paul, you're in control of what people can see. Scott, can you hear us? Ah, there he is.
Good morning.
Good morning, Scott.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. We got you. So, Paul, make sure you just got maybe Scott up there. I mean, maybe all of it right now. But, Scott, welcome to Equity Colorado's monthly virtual sales meeting. I just kind of gave a little intro about you and how we had to book you like 6 months ago, and how what a crazy world we're in. That when we had booked you, we thought we were going to be talking about like your top 10 things to watch out for, and that's out the window. I don't even know what all you got in store for us, or what you can enlighten us with what's happening on the front that you're dealing with every day.
Yeah, you bet, Todd. Well, it's been when we originally talked about this many months ago, and there's been one primary topic that's floated around for most of the year. I think you guys are familiar with the little flu that's going around, and so that's been a big part of this year, as you guys all know, and has had such a weird impact. I won't spend too much time talking about that, because frankly, like most of you might be tired of hearing about it, I'm kind of tired of talking about it, and there are some other things to talk about, but. Yeah, it's been a very strange year, and from a complete. I think when you and Stacy originally reached out back in maybe February or whenever it was, we were going to do this in the SMDRA building, I think where you guys do your meetings often, and I was going to do what would have been my 6th annual 10 Things 2-hour CE course, I think, for you guys, and that changed because. That's meant to be a very sort of in-person and active, engaged class, or it has been for the last 5 years that I've done it. And that wasn't going to happen clearly this year. And so everything changed pretty dramatically in, mid to late March. And we've been in a very different year. And you guys have had an incredibly strange year, I think, with a complete standstill of your business and a lot of curveballs thrown at all of us, but particularly in the real estate business from March through, I don't know, June or early July, where there was at any given time, all sorts of different directives and curveballs and going from, not being able to show homes or to really do business in any meaningful way for you all, to sort of coming out of this with market velocity throughout the metro area, throughout our resort communities, particularly, that I have not seen and have not heard about. And I talk to people both through, the regular parts of what I do, as well as the time that I get to spend answering the legal hotline, talk to people in every corner of the state. And the consistent theme for everybody is, just sort of shock and awe related to the volume of transactions, the volume of interest, showing levels. Still, as has been a problem in Colorado for many years, I know I've been hearing people complain about lack of inventory, and all of that has certainly been the case, and has created some interesting challenges that I'll kind of tie some of the other topics that I'm going to hit on here today. But just to be a little bit consistent with the year and the topic du jour of COVID, I do want to address a couple of things there that I think you guys need to be thinking about. And I would say that the COVID as a topic has really thankfully flattened out a lot on the hotline, and that's primarily because we've really hit a pretty good status quo with things. All of that crazy sequence of executive orders and local county sort of limitations that went over and above the executive orders, and all those really difficult times that we were faced with in the spring and early part of the summer really have pretty well flattened out. And I think, credit to you all and realtors and how you guys have conducted your business with respect to really being able to adapt. And our industry as a whole, if you look at what we have done as an industry with regard to, performing brokerage services, loan underwriting, title and closing services, inspection services, our industry has really stepped up to the plate in a really meaningful way over the last several months and completely restructured many of our normal practices and policies and everything, adapted, and then in response as well, really jumped back into a market that is exceptionally high volume, high velocity. And so that's a really nice reflection of our industry. And because of that, I think we've seen a pretty consistent status quo. The couple of areas that I'm still getting a lot of hotline questions on has to do with tenant occupied properties and access for the purposes of showings, access for the purposes of delivering possession, eviction type questions from property managers in our membership. And my sort of advice there is that you all have to be super, super cautious if you're dealing with tenants in any capacity. If you're on the listing side and you're trying to access a property on behalf of a client for the purposes of showing a tenant occupied property, it's super important to be deferential and sort of respectful of the tenant and their desire. And I would say, maybe even to back up a little bit, before you take a listing that has a tenant involved, whether it's an investment deal where the tenant is going to stay or a possession kind of deal, a non-investment deal where the tenant is presumably going to leave and then a buyer is going to, purchase or close and occupy the property, either one of those two situations, you really need to have a conversation with your prospective or new client, the seller, about, is this the right time to be listing that property? Because it might not be. Because that's where the spectrum started. Is I get a lot of very frustrated calls from brokers out there saying, "Hey, I've got a tenant occupied property. They're not allowing showings. They're not being, they're not cleaning the place up. They're not, they're just being difficult." And I'm like, well, guess what? What are you going to do? You don't have a lot of options. Your client, the landlord, doesn't really have a lot of options, because that great stick that is the eviction process or enforcement of the contract that is the lease in a normal world can be relatively difficult, but at least there's a process in place. In the COVID world, none of that exists. And so the landlord's normal hammer or stick or whatever you want to refer to it as to force a tenant into compliance with a lease or cooperation with showings and things like that, it doesn't exist right now. And so that preliminary conversation is super, super important, no matter what. And then on the possession side, where it's not an investment deal, where you're actually going to be selling it, it is critical that you are upfront and in writing and really leaning on your client, seller client, to make sure they are capable of delivering possession based on the contract terms that they've contracted for. Because that's the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of problems with, is that you get in the middle of a contract or you get down the road a little bit, tenant says, yeah, we're going to leave, we're going to move, no problem. They've been cooperative in providing showing access, they've been cooperative in many respects, and then they kind of get towards the end of the deal, and the landlord's supposed to deliver possession at or just after closing, and the seller, I should say, is going to deliver possession at or just after closing, and the tenant suddenly becomes pretty non-cooperative. or they're looking for a buyout or some sort of, cash to walk away or some other incentive to walk away. And that's a curveball that is happening frequently. And once again, my answer is, it's the landlord just got to, or seller/landlord just got to identify their pain points. Sometimes the possession for delayed, the penalty for delayed possession that's been contracted for on a per day basis can be super substantial and can be really, really punitive. And so maybe it does make sense to sort of cooperate with the tenant to try and, sweeten the deal to get them to move. And so all of those things are kind of where we're at, I would say, in the day-to-day COVID issues, COVID type questions, because really when it comes to showings, obviously we're really well back on track. When it comes to open houses even, I'm starting to see more and more open house signs that are floating around out there, and under very specific and strict limitations, you're able to do those. It's still a pretty heavy lift in many respects. And I think if you are going to be doing open houses with your sellers, you probably want to have a conversation with them up front to help them understand that, do open houses really sell homes, or do they really sell brokerage professionals? And so making sure that you're acting in the best interest of your seller, particularly for seller occupied properties. It's one thing if you've got a new construction that's unoccupied, or maybe a property that the seller's already vacated, maybe less concerns about the volume of touches and exposure and all of those things. But nonetheless, be thinking of all of those things as you're recommending open houses. And of course, that's all going to take place at the instruction or direction of your seller anyhow. But do be having a little bit more robust conversation at the front end with your clients if you're doing those. And then the last thing I guess I'd mention is that some of the form usage. I would still be using, and hopefully you guys have been or are using, the CAR buyer and seller COVID advisory documents. Those are free and available on our website. And those are, if you're working with a buyer, you give them the buyer advisor. If you're working with a seller, you give them a seller advisory. Those aren't liability shifting documents. They're not going to specifically move liability from one party to another or away from you. But I do think they could be exculpatory documents in the event that, you said you had a buyer as an example who you took out on a series of property tours, and then you find out later that one of the homes was, active for COVID, exposure or whatever you want to call it. And that buyer had some liability. They lost a job, or they had to take time away from work, or they lost income or whatever. They wanted to point their finger at you. To the extent that you had given them that buyer advisory ahead of time and said, hey, listen, this is an uncertain time to be showing property. Again, it doesn't specifically shift liability, but if somebody were to bring an action against you for some alleged breach of your professional standard of care, like an E&O claim, then it would be awfully nice to have that acknowledgement in your file to say, hey, we talked about this. I had this discussion with the buyer ahead of time. I had it with the seller ahead of time, whatever the case may be. So I think those advisories are going to be good to use, up and until there's, we're sort of out of the woods here. And so if you are using them, continue to, and if you haven't been using them, then have a look. They're totally free and available for you to use. The COVID addendum I would probably be leaving by the wayside, because as I mentioned at the very outset of this discussion, our industry has adapted really, really well. And so at the very early stages of this, where we weren't sure if underwriting was going to be able to take place, or home inspections were going to be able to take place, or closings were going to be able to take place, that addendum was pretty important to have to give both buyer and the seller some flexibility with regard to being responsive. But at this point, I think almost universally our industry has really adapted well and is capable of responding well. So anyhow, I'll leave it there on the COVID piece and move on. And are we going to have a chance for questions, or I don't?
So yeah, I'm watching the Facebook Live feed.
Okay.
And, so yeah, we'll ask for questions and take questions. And
Okay.
I do
So I'm
appreciate
happy.
what you said about the advisory.
Yeah.
That is how we instructed our company. The liability waivers, we were against those. We had too many issues with those, and the COVID addendum. Yeah, I think we jumped the gun and made something that we didn't need to really make, because we, like you said, we figured it out. We made ourselves get through it all. But the advisory definitely is a smart thing. I'm so done talking to COVID as well, but
It is good.
but you did say status quo. Is there anything? I mean, my number one survey request from our agents is, boy, we sure do miss getting together. Do you see anything on the horizon of what has to occur for us to start getting back together? I mean,
for a CE class.
I talked to
meeting,
Melissa, and I mean, it's like you said, open houses. I'm like, I again advised against doing open houses because it's just to meet all the rules and do it perfectly. It's crazy. Yeah. And same with doing a meeting and speaking with Melissa at SMDRA, the CEO. She's like, geez, it's just way too hard to put these together. Are we hearing anything out there about things getting a little easier, or is it, like you said, status quo?
I don't think so. I think we're going to be, well, I mean, here's the thing, that the sense of risk and the way people are reacting to this thing is incredibly sort of disparate. And so I think in many respects, our governor and the state as a whole is going to be exercising an abundance of caution with regard to loosening any of the public gathering limitations. And that is tough. I mean, I couldn't agree with you guys more. It's nice to, I mean, I love doing in-person continuing education. I love getting out and visiting. I wish we were all, together in the big conference room at SMDRA doing our thing. But the reality of it is, again, with the limitations that are in place, I don't know, I'm sure SMDRA's done some head count, but even in that huge new room that they have there, I'm guessing that the most in terms of occupancy under current limitations would probably be somewhere 20, 25, maybe people with the distancing limitations, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
What Melissa said, it was
yeah.
like 20 to 25. Like it's normally a 200-man room. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really difficult in terms of indoor gatherings, really a difficult hurdle to sort of comply with. And I would imagine that until we see some well-demonstrated either therapeutic or clearly a vaccine, I think we're going to spend a lot of time in a bit of a social distance mode. Although I think a lot of at least I don't know anything different than anybody else would, but the news that I'm hearing that there's some of the vaccines and maybe advanced therapeutics are moving along from a medical standpoint, a pretty phenomenal clip. And so, but in the meantime, I just don't see a lot of changes to the physical interaction that I think we all probably crave, and the ability to get together without a very awkward sort of social distance spacing. But nothing I expect to see too soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
It's good to get an outside perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other notes that I have here, and again, I'm happy to, if you guys have questions about anything under the sun, I'm happy to take them. But I will point out, and I think this is representative of market, deal velocity, low inventory. Things are getting a little chippy out there, I guess is the best way I would describe it. And so what I'm seeing, and I can always see as being reflective of that, is an increase in hotline call volume related to earnest money disputes, earnest money questions, seller not wanting to release it because they don't, not quite believe in the buyer's game, or other issues related to bad faith, often termination, inspection type issues, obviously loan paragraph 5.2 stuff. So I'm getting an increase a noticeable increase in earnest money type questions. So I just want to do a very quick sort of reminder to you guys as agents when you're in that situation. First of all, I like to say oftentimes to brokers, the reason you're involved in the transaction is to broker it, and that's your title, and that's what you do, and you bring a professional level of expertise and hopefully calm to a transaction. And so often I find in earnest money disputes, they really flow from either poor communication or a lack of communication, because one side or the other either says something erroneously, or sends over a termination that isn't properly completed or doesn't exactly explain the meaning for the reason for the termination, things along that lines. And those kind of breaches in the communication, failures of communication, lack of communication, whatever that might be, I really think it's the responsibility of the broker or the realtor to make sure that on both sides, both the listing broker and the selling broker, to make sure that that's not occurring, and to make sure that particularly that any lack of communication isn't leading to an earnest money dispute. And moreover, to make sure that if you're representing a seller, helping them understand or not, or helping set their expectations. A lot of sellers kind of go, okay, well, we got through the inspection, we're good to go. Or they see the buyer's loan approval letter, which is really junk in many cases, or pre-approval letter, which is essentially junk. And they think, well, they're qualified for the loan. And now they're terminating based on paragraph 5.2. Issues related to that on the listing side, I think it's important that you, as listing brokers, set your sellers' expectations to help them understand. I mean, listen, you don't want to dampen spirits, and you want to make sure that they stay engaged and excited about the transaction, and that they don't, that you're not constantly sort of raining on their parade. But at the same time, it is important for sellers to understand that, it doesn't all end at the inspection or the inspection resolution, or that the pre-approval letter is an important document to at least put some flavor on these prospective buyers. But it certainly, because somebody was pre-approved, wouldn't preclude a buyer from terminating based on paragraph 5.2 of the contract. And I think that's one of the things that I'm seeing a lot more of, is sellers just saying basically, well, this buyer didn't act in good faith. Well, I don't know that the buyer didn't act in good faith. I think maybe in more of those cases, the listing broker didn't properly help their seller understand what the full implications of a potential loan termination may be. And because of that, when it finally comes, and it's often very late in the transaction, there's a lot of frustration and anger and that sort of thing related to the buyer, and then just a refusal or an unwillingness to sign an earnest money release form, even though it might be entirely appropriate. And so I would encourage you guys on the listing side to do that. And then on the buy side, I think it is important to have that discussion about good faith and how the loan termination is being utilized. And certainly somebody losing a job, which with all of the economic uncertainty that we're having, and I think we're going to have, unfortunately, as increasing over the coming months and years, a lot more economic uncertainty, volatility, let's say, could be legitimate changes to a buyer's financial picture, their ability to perform, their willingness to perform, all of those things, which only further increases, in my opinion, the likelihood of continued discussions about earnest money disputes. And so do have that on your radars. But on the buy side, it is, with all of that said, still important that the buyer is using their dates and deadlines and contingencies for the purposes they are intended for. And under all of that, still continuing to act in good faith and perform in good faith, and not terminate in bad faith. Because they certainly could risk their earnest money, or at least an earnest money dispute, and that's not a great place for a buyer to be. So again, I would be encourage you guys to be mindful of that, because I am definitely seeing an increase in some of that animosity within a transaction as it relates to release of earnest money after termination.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, you're mirroring exactly what I'm seeing. We have had multiple earnest money issues. We haven't made it all the way to, any kind of a resolution that we couldn't do inside the brokerage firms or, between managers, but you're definitely seeing buyers and sellers having issues, and people, saying, hey, good faith. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing a lot of sellers that are wanting to say, no, I'm entitled to that earnest money. And so that's where we're seeing them dig their heels in and, having to educate people on the contract and the expectations. But sellers are going, no, I want that earnest money. Setting expectations is super important, particularly on the listing side, because sellers really, they've made all kinds of commitments with regard to getting out of the property. When they get particularly a late loan termination, that creates a hostile sort of environment there for sure. I mean, the other derivative of that I'm getting a lot of stuff on is, can I relist the property, and questions related to that if there is an earnest money dispute. And I think you have to be cautious. The seller's really got to make a decision. If they're not releasing earnest money, then there's got to be a basis for that. And so one would be the buyer
well, what I often hear is, well, the buyer didn't have a right to terminate, so I'm not going to release the earnest money. Well, what the contract says specifically is if a party doesn't have a right to terminate and they terminate, then the termination is ineffective. It doesn't do anything. It's essentially a worthless piece of paper. And so if the seller's position is the buyer didn't have a right to terminate and yet they terminated, well, guess what? You still have a contract because the buyer just sent you a worthless piece of paper. And if you still have a contract and you go and relist the property, or you might be in violation of your NLS rules, but where you can really get into trouble is if you go and recontract for the property and you still have another party that has an active contract with you, despite the fact that you haven't acknowledged, or despite the fact that they may have terminated, but in that case, according to paragraph 25 of the contract, they've sent you an ineffective termination. So in that case, you could have, two independent contracts to sell the same property to two parties, and that could create some real issues, obviously, as well. So relisting one thing could be just a violation of NLS issue or rules kind of thing, but actually recontracting for could be a very significant issue for a seller. So do be cautious as you're doing that and playing around with earnest money disputes on the listing side, or if your seller's doing that. But anyhow, questions or anything else on that before I move to something else?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. So another issue that we're seeing, and this is on a different side of kind of what part of my job entails, and that is our administration of professional standards. And once again, reflective of, I think, market conditions, a little bit more volatility among people's nerves, their moods, their temperatures, whatever you want to call it, is a pretty significant increase that we're seeing, that CAR is seeing in our pro standards complaints, arbitration and ethics both. And that's over the last several months. I think some of it probably has to do with the downtime that you guys experienced in kind of March and April. And so maybe we're starting to see some of the fruits of that period. But I also think it's reflective of some of the active time that we're seeing since, kind of late spring, early summer. And again, lower inventory, a little bit more economic uncertainty, more overall volatility has led to more arbitration requests. Mostly that we see are those between brokers related to often procuring cause, fighting over the same buyer. That's probably the number one arbitration request that we're seeing. And then also a lot of ethics complaints, and those are often coming against realtors from consumers. I would say most commonly that we're seeing are failure to disclose kind of issues. And I think some of that is maybe reflective of the harried period of buying. So a buyer goes under contract, maybe they don't pay as much attention to the little details, the inspection type items during the contract period. Then they close, move in, and they start seeing the things that annoy them. And then they want to sort of complain that the listing broker or their own buyer's agent didn't meet their standard of care with regard to disclosures. And so they pursue some ethics complaints. I think the Division of Real Estate, if we were to ask Marshall Waters, would probably be saying that I think they're seeing some increase in overall complaints against licensees as a whole, because I think all of this stuff sort of tracks together. And But anyhow, on the procuring cause side of things, to jump back to the arbitration piece, one of the things that I'm thinking that's a result of, and you guys could probably do a little bit better job of making sure your buyers, a very common fact scenario that we see in arbitration is that a buyer who is engaged with a realtor through an exclusive, or sometimes not through an exclusive, but just through a transaction brokerage relationship, that they've been working with a realtor. They're actively looking around at some of the various syndication sites and everything else. And consumers buyers legitimately get confused when they set up an appointment to go view a property, because it often looks like the person that they're contacting might be the listing agent or listing broker, and they're contacting some other buyer's agent who's paid to have their results, high in some of these syndication sites. And so on the buyer side, you could do a better job of educating the buyers that you're working with, either through an exclusive relationship or through just a transaction brokerage disclosure, non-exclusive relationship, do a better job of helping them understand that they need to be, very careful about just sort of clicking on buttons to schedule a showing or schedule a property tour, because that scenario often ends up in our arbitration process related to procuring cause or an ethics complaint related to sign crossing, or interfering with a brokerage relationship article violation. So do be mindful of that. And I think this is something that going forward in your brokerage practices, as we see more and more active buyer engagement, more and more of these sort of syndication sites that can be confusing to your buyers, to have that conversation with your buyer early to make sure they understand, what your role is in the transaction and what somebody else's role might be, including, somebody who is just a paid sort of subscriber to one of the syndication sites. And I think that would help with a lot of the arbitrations that we see, because they often flow out of facts that are very similar to that. Questions, comments there?
So yeah, we're just checking our Facebook live feed, and I think we do have a question that has come in.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered this. I don't know if Kristen came in a little late, or if maybe you could clarify it just in a simpler term. She says, "Hey Scott, can you clarify? I'll clarify. If I have a listing and the buyer sends a notice to terminate, do I have to wait until the seller signs the earnest money release before relisting it? I've heard yes and no. Would love your opinion." So I'm not hearing anything that there's a dispute. I'm just hearing that can I throw it on the real quick and then sign the earnest money release, or
in sort of classic lawyer fashion, I will say the answer is yes and no, which is probably why you've heard that, because it does depend, and maybe I didn't fully sort of flesh this out as I was talking about it, but it sort of depends on the reason that the seller's not releasing or not agreeing to sign an earnest money release. If the seller is saying, I'm not signing an earnest money release because you terminated based on inspection and you were past your deadline, as an example, and you sent over a termination based on inspection, and therefore I'm not going to sign the earnest money release. Well, in that case, if a buyer was past their inspection objection and they terminated based on inspection, or past their inspection and termination deadline and they terminated based on inspection, then what the contract says is they didn't have a right to terminate. And what the contract further says is that if somebody doesn't have a right to terminate, then the termination that they send over is ineffective, which means that your seller still has a contract. And so if that's the seller's position or proposition, then I would say, no, you shouldn't be relisting the property. If the seller's proposition is, I'm not going to sign an earnest money release because you terminated based on loan, yet the reason that you terminated based on loan wasn't actually because it was based on a loan, but because you acted in bad faith. And in fact, we have evidence that you went and made another offer on another property while you were under contract with us. Well, in that case, I would say the termination may well be effective, but really in that case, the seller's position would be, buyer, you are in termination of the contract you're in breach of the contract because you acted in bad faith. You violated paragraph 29 of the contract, 28 of the contract, whatever it is, it's very end of the contract. You were in breach of the contract based on you acting in bad faith by putting another property. And therefore, the buyer's in breach. So it wasn't necessarily that the buyer terminated the contract ended, but the seller's exerting the buyer's bad faith, and therefore the buyer's in breach. In that case, I would say, well, the contract's dead. And the seller is essentially saying, we're not going to enforce this contract any longer because you've performed in bad faith. And in that case, I would say you could put the house back on the market, you could put the house back under contract. And so the devil's kind of in the details with the reasoning behind the seller's refusal to sign the earnest money release. If the seller's just being a jerk, and I get a lot of that too, where there's legitimately the seller's just kind of being a jerk, and that's maybe not entirely fair, because in selling your property, I mean, getting a late termination from a buyer screws up all kinds of things, very legitimate things, including putting what is often the seller's earnest money on the buyer's side of a future transaction at risk because they've got another contract that they're planning to perform on. So there's a lot of reasons that the seller may be very jilted and feeling like a jerk. In that case, that doesn't excuse the seller's refusal to sign the earnest money release. And so what can happen is, a savvy buyer, now a broker should never ever do this. In fact, never ever ever sort of record liens or do anything that would cloud title on a transaction. But there is savvy buyers I hear about that will basically say, hey, you don't want to sign the earnest money release? That's fine. You just went under contract with another buyer. I'm sitting here 3 weeks out. I had every right to terminate the contract. You want to be a jerk? I'm going to go record the first page of the contract that I have against your title. No problem. It's easy to do. You can do it for, I don't know, it depends on the county, but probably $5 for a single page recording fee and a trip to the recorder's office. And now your seller is not going to be able to perform on this new contract that they have with the buyer because they've got a cloud of title. And that may be a legitimate cloud of title, to be honest with you. If there's a dispute related to the property, then who knows? Now, again, as a broker, you shouldn't be advising people to do that or anything else. But I get those calls as well, which is, well, we put the property back on the market, we put it back under contract. My seller still hasn't released the earnest money. They probably should have, but they just don't want to release it, or they're being a jerk. And now we've got a cloud of title. What do I do? And I say, well, have your seller talk to an attorney because that's the next step in the process. So anyhow, just be cautious as you're relisting properties in those scenarios.
No, that's great.
Yeah, that's great. Do we have any other questions?
No. You hit it all.
You hit it all.
Okay. Well, I can keep going, or we can. I guess I'm probably at my half hour.
I think we've taken up your time. Yeah, we've taken
perfect
time, and boy, I can't wait to get back in person soon. I don't know when it's going to be, Scott, but yeah, we sure do appreciate all the work you do at CAR.
Yeah.
And the support you do on the legal hotline for us, and just being there, and maybe now that we can just do this on Zoom, we can get you maybe sooner than 6 months out, because we all have a little bit more time because we're not driving anywhere. That saves a lot of time when you're not out running around. But
it does make it a lot more efficient, and I'm always happy. You guys, you and Stacy run a great shop, and you've got a lot of great brokers, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. I appreciate your guys' participation in the realtor associations, and particularly with CAR, and so I'm glad that you guys have seen. We've had one good thing about this is that CAR, as an association, has really been able, I think, to demonstrate some of the important things we do from an advocacy standpoint for the industry, and so I appreciate you guys pointing that out. And it's been an interesting year, but in a lot of ways fun and really challenging. And so hopefully we're through the woods, and hopefully next time I'm with you guys, in that SMDRA classroom, and we can have a little bit more fun with this session.
Oh, that'd be great.
Awesome.
No.
Well, thank you for your wealth of knowledge. We're getting lots of thank yous in the comment section of our Facebook Live. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Great information.
Great stuff.
So yeah, thank you for all the value.
You bet, guys. Thank you so much, and stay busy out there. It's a good time to make money.
It is. Make hay while you can.
Yes. Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Always so knowledgeable, and it's great to get an attorney perspective on things too, because that's not something that we have the background to do. So
and it's funny that the hot topics that he's seeing definitely mirror what we're seeing and what you guys are bringing to us. I mean, we've been hearing earnest money disputes and good faith, and so
and landlord-tenant putting listings on the market with tenants. Can you ask them to leave during showings, and how do you get them to vacate early, and all kinds of questions like that. So
awesome, good stuff. So
quickly, can I plug Scott's Legal Bites? I know we post them on our weekly update, and this is just one more important reason why you should watch those weekly update emails. But if you need direct updates like that, everything Scott brought to us today, there's a full YouTube channel, the CAR YouTube channel. I just wanted to briefly mention that while we have everybody's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't paid attention to the legal bites that we are putting in that Monday weekly update, they are 5 to 8 minute snippets where he talks about a question that's come in, or legal issues, or advice and guidance from an attorney's perspective. They're really, really good, and talk about learning something above and beyond what you would normally learn just by reading something on Elevate or attending a Tuesday talk. You'll get ahead of the curve by watching those.
Yeah, if you go to your YouTube channel, and then if you click on channels, those are other channels that we refer, that we like. And you've got John Goodman's legal information there. You've got Brian Buffini's information there. You've got Scott's. So yeah, if you know our YouTube channel, you can get to all the other stuff. So yeah, awesome. So I'd like to take a few minutes. Really excited that Erik Stocken is stepping up and is running for the SMDRA Board of Directors. And we have Erik on today. We're going to let him chit chat a little bit, but I'm super proud of our company on a whole. As you know, I ran for the Board of Directors. I don't know, it's now been 6 or 7 years ago, and was the president of the board. And then Marcel Savoy was on the board, and he became the president. We got Max Johnson, who's currently on the board. And then we've had many people who have attended leadership, and I hope we just keep doing this, because as Scott said, it's really important to be a part of this. And I do get questions all the time. Why do I belong to SMDRA? Why am I at CAR? Why am I at NAR? And really, it's about the professionalism. It's about protecting our future, the future of our industry, and the future of home ownership. And if you just break it down, that's simple. All the little goodies that we get, the benefits, that's all fun, that's great. But really, it comes down to protecting our industry and being able to do what we do, being able to charge what we charge, having a free industry where we're able to really control our destiny, and we're not told how to run our businesses, which, I mean, the government would love to be able to tell us what you have to charge and what you have to do, and that we're employees. I mean, there's a lot to it. And then just home ownership rights and the rights of landowners. And so there's so much to it. And I'm just really proud that, we've had a very active office being part of the boards. Wendy Bailey down in Colorado Springs, she's on the board. She's considering running for board president. She's on the Women Council. I mean, we're really involved people. And then, of course, Kenny Parcell in Utah, who's going to be the 2022 president of NAR. I mean, so as a company, it's pretty exciting. But we've got Erik Stocken here today, and I just wanted to ask him a few questions, or really just let him riff and tell us, why do you want to be on the board, Erik? So Paul's in charge of making things blow up here, I think.
Well, yeah,
so,
let's take a look. Let's get Erik on the screen.
Let's get Erik up here. So
you're live, Erik.
Erik,
hi guys.
Glad to hear. Hey, buddy.
How is everybody doing today?
Good.
Great.
If you could just, we don't need to know your whole life history and where you were born and everything, but we would like to know why you became a realtor, what it means to be a realtor, and why you think it's important to be involved. And we've talked about this, from a personal standpoint, what it means for you to be involved and how it helps you and yourself and your business, your growth, and then what you'd like to give. So take it away.
All right. Well, that's plenty of questions. Hopefully I got enough time.
That'll keep you busy.
I'll keep it rolling.
Hey, everybody, thanks for taking the time to join us today and let us speak about the opportunity that we have here, that I have. I feel honored to represent Equity and also to be part of the SMDRA Board of Directors. I became a realtor because I really wanted to run business the way that I want to run my business. In my past, I've worked for very, very large corporations, U.S. Army, Halliburton. I've also worked for, small and medium-sized civil engineering firms. And, one of the things that I got out of that is that leaders inspire others to be leaders. When I was in the Army, that's all I wanted to do was be a leader, so I wanted to be the best that I could be, which was the motto at that time. Jumping out of airplanes, rappelling out of helicopters. I went to EMT school to try to get a little bit ahead to begin training to become a Special Forces medic. And the whole time, the Army sent me also to several leadership schools to really develop our leadership styles. And what I found from that is to lead from the front and also be part of the change. You know, tough times deserve tough leaders, and these are some really tough times right now. And you know, I feel that my network and everybody that I talk to, I feel that I'm a pretty inspirational guy, and I like to inspire others to do bigger things than what they are, and also be part of something bigger than they are. You know, when I worked my way up from being a civil engineering draftsman all the way up through the ranks and became a project manager. And at that time, I also hired interns right out of high school that went to vocational high school for drafting. And I wanted to mold those people to help them become bigger and better and further their careers as well. I mean, right out of high school, these were 18 and 19-year-old kids that I was leading, and it felt fantastic to be able to teach them. You know, after that, I went into doing the housing market crash happened at that time, and so I went into doing some construction management. Same thing. You know, even though as a project manager, I still wanted to inspire others and working with them for, you know, whether they were subcontractors, laborers, it didn't matter. We all worked together to get to the same goal, which was accomplishment and budget and deadline and schedules. So, you know, those are the things that I've looked at. Let's see. I'm trying to remember some of the other many questions that you asked.
So being on the board, I mean, so obviously it's important for you to be a leader. So, and being a leader means
inspire and
being involved. So just being involved, and where else is better than being, you know, at the board level.
Absolutely.
What do you see as the biggest benefit as the board?
You know,
delivers to us.
Being a voice for the masses, I think is what I really want to do for the board. You know, there's some tough times right now, and it's very uncertain on what we have to do. So we're re-examining everything about how we do business, how we do it safely, what the requirements are, and what the regulations are that are telling us what to do. You know, and even more so, you know, Todd recommending maybe this is not such a great time to be doing open houses and that type of thing. So I want to be able to be a voice for, you know, everybody that's in SMDRA, not just my own agenda. I love to talk to people, and I love to get their point of view and their understanding of what's going on. And if it's different than what's actually happening, let's make them aware of what's going on, and let's be heard. You know, I think that it's so difficult right now to figure out how do I proceed with my business and how do I do it safely. I want to be a part of that future on moving our realtors forward into the future. You know, we've had disruptors and all the other terms that you want to throw in there, but it still comes down to personal relationships, and it really comes down to being able to talk with people.
No, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
No, it doesn't have to be too in depth as why you want to help. You just want to help, and you want to be a part of the solution and part of
Exactly.
growth. And I'm excited that you're running. I'm proud of you and Mariah for having stepped up and done the Leadership Academy. Unfortunately, a lot of it was online. You guys didn't get to do some of the cool stuff that we normally get to do when we're in person. But again, like you said, you know, this is where we're at, and helping us navigate this is important. So that's all. So what do we got to do? How do we vote for you? How do we make sure that we get you on the board?
So everybody that's in SMDRA that has the ability to vote has been emailed the ballot and the opportunity to vote. So click the button that says Erik Stocken, and then I don't know if you can do it twice, but try to do it twice.
That's
but
awesome.
vote for Erik. You know,
I'd
love to have the opportunity to continue to represent equity. I feel that this is an amazing company, and I'm so happy to be part of it.
Thanks, Erik. We're happy to have you guys here. And
I know Paul has voted. I have voted. Todd has voted.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you didn't get the link, you can just go onto your own portal when you log in to SMDRA.
It was in the weekly update. If you go to your Monday weekly update, we've got the link right there. It's right here in the sales meeting agenda. So when that recap goes out in the email, you're going to get that. So there's plenty of places so that you don't have to hunt it down. But you can go to the SMDRA website, click login, go to your own portal, and everything's right there. So
it takes 2 minutes as well, and it's important. 2 minutes, that's all it takes.
Yeah, please, guys. Let's
get
Erik on the board and have a great representative for us. So thanks, Erik.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your time, everybody. You have a great day.
All right. See you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm so excited he's doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, when he said he was going to run for it, that just made me happy. So we've got a short market update. We're trying to keep this to an hour just because we're not sure how much information do we have online. Normally this is an hour and a half when we're in person, but then we're doing shout outs and we're walking around the room, and we got listings we're showing. Well, we can't do all that, but I do think you've got some decent updates here that would be fun to share. So
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things. I know we're going past our 11 o'clock hour. I think we had blocked off till 11:15. So hopefully you guys will.
Oh, did
bear
we
with
say
me
11:15?
For,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
for
Okay.
a couple of minutes. I'm going to break this market update into a couple small segments. I'm going to give you some statistics. We're not going to show charts and graphs today, but I want to talk to you about some important numbers from August. I'm going to share a quote. I'm then going to give you some information on new construction. I'm going to give you some fun facts, and I'm going to wrap it up with 3 pieces of advice.
Oh, okay. So this is.
So,
hang on, we're here.
So yeah.
Stay on.
So yeah, I was going to try and make it 5 minutes. I think it's going to be closer to 8. So, but I promise you will walk away with something. So first of all, let's just kind of talk about how August shaped up. And it was the 4th consecutive month that we saw growth in the pending sales category. So August, we broke records for highest average sales price. Average sales price across the detached single family is now $606,000.
Average.
Average.
That's the average.
Average cost of a home in Denver Metro is $606,000. In July, it was $597, I believe. So it ticked up pretty good. The other astounding statistic that I found for August is typically we start to talk about seasonality. And you guys are all worried as we come out of the 4th of July, sales start to level off. August, it gets a little quieter. Kids are going back to school. We're ramping up for the Labor Day holiday, the unofficial end of summer. This year, we didn't see things taper off the way it has in past years. No surprise. I mean, it's COVID.
We're
nothing is
we're
normal
catching up, and now we're
2020.
surpassing. I mean, we've caught up and surpassed.
Yeah. So what I found in August is that typically listings go up by about 1%. This past August for 2020, listings actually went down by 14% compared to July.
Wow.
41% compared to this time last year.
Oh my gosh.
So what that means to you is typically when you look at the statistics, so there's statistics that are tracked from 1985 to 2019. So during that 24-year period, August, we typically come out of August with 16,500 listings on the market. 16,500. We came out of August 9 days ago with 5,500 listings.
Oh my God.
That's 11,000 units down.
That's why you guys are struggling to find your buyers' homes.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
exactly right. So we're not going to see the seasonality that we normally do. We didn't see that shift. So don't expect things to be tapering off too dramatically. The quote that I wanted to share with you, Lawrence Yun, which if you're not familiar with Lawrence Yun, he is the NAR chief economist. He speaks at all the conventions. You've probably seen him on YouTube videos, in newsletters, in articles. He was quoted saying on September 1st, if 20% more homes were on the market, we'd have 20% more sales because the demand is just that high. And that's nationally. That's not Colorado specific. So why? Why do we have such high demand? And if we look in the rearview mirror and we kind of see what has been going on the past few months, I contribute it to 3 things. So we have high demand because stock market's actually been doing really well. July and August, stock market did great. So as people see their 401ks go up, as they see their investments doing well, it creates consumer confidence. Car sales are doing really well right now. People are buying homes and they're buying cars because they're seeing that their investments are doing good, and that's making them feel confident about moving forward. The other thing is because of the pandemic lockdown. We didn't have a spring selling season. March, April, and May, it was really hard to sell homes. So we have a lot of pent up demand. The third thing, interest rates. I feel like last year we said interest rates are
We've
at
been
an
saying that
all-time
for
low.
so long, but
They are
they can't go lower. I
they
mean,
continue to be at an all-time low. So the statistics on interest rates, I get Monday interest rate text messages every Monday. And this Monday, the text message was conventional 30-year loan, 2.5%. FHA VA, 2.25%. Jumbo, 3.625%. No points. Buyers have 10% higher buying power today than they had a year ago. So even though prices are going up,
because of interest rates, they can afford.
they can afford more. So if your buyer was looking at a $300,000 home last year, they can now afford a $330,000 home this year.
And that's why some people might be stretching, and maybe why some people should be told to stretch if they feel confident in their career and where they're at. We're not talking back, 2008, and go get a something that's going to readjust. We're not talking about adjustable mortgages, but we are talking about leverage that money, because
Money is cheap right now.
maybe they're not going to be buying a home every 3 years or every 7 years. Maybe they're going to buy a house right now and stay there a little longer because the rates are so good. They can afford something maybe that's a little nicer than they were expecting to. It might be a little bit on the edge for them, but they can stay there longer and take advantage of these amazing rates, because we keep saying it, it's not going to last forever. It's going to be like this for a while.
Yeah.
But not forever.
But not forever. So because of these three things, we've got this huge pent-up demand. We've got lack of inventory, as we're seeing right and left. We've been crying the blues about inventory for years now. And it just when you think it can't dip any further, it keeps dipping as far as inventory levels. So because of this, sellers are seeing their homes go really, really quickly. I mean, the average days on market in most price range are 6 before a property goes under contract in RE Colorado.
6 days.
6 days.
If your home's on the market for 8, don't call us.
What's wrong?
But if the house is on the market for 30 days, 45 days,
There's something wrong.
There's something wrong. You've got a pricing issue or you got a conditions issue.
Yeah. So the statistic, to put it in perspective on how quickly homes are selling, for every 10 new listings that come on the market, 9 of them go under contract in that 6-day period.
Wow.
Inventories getting eaten up pretty quick.
That's
For every
crazy.
10 new listings, 9 of them go under contract. And most of those have multiple offers.
Right.
So nationally, year over year, contracts are at 15%. So that's a great statistic nationally. What are our predictions for the future? I think that's kind of the elephant in the room. That's the big question. What are things going to look like the next couple of months? And that's kind of the talking points that you guys are wanting when you're sitting down at, well, you're not sitting at kitchen tables, you're possibly doing Zoom meetings with your sellers and saying, hey, what's the strategy? Do we list now? Do we list January? Do we list March? We don't have the crystal ball, but based upon all the information, the data that we're seeing locally and nationally, it is not going to slow down anytime soon. So when is the best time to sell a house?
Now.
We know what it is now. We
Yep.
don't know what it's going to be in January. So my couple of fun statistics, according to realtor.com, millennials have made up more than half of new mortgage loans in 2020.
Wow. Just when we thought the millennials were kind of hanging
Hanging
out
out in mom and dad's
house,
basement.
they're half the homeowners buying right now.
Yes. So the 27, 28, and 29-year-olds are the largest purchase population right now. So if you have kids that have friends in this population, you
Add
need
them
to
to your
start
database.
and make their parents your new network, because you want to be that advisor for those millennials. So mortgage applications for that demographic just in Denver alone is up 28% compared to last year. New construction, let's transition to that. Labor, lumber, expensive right now. Lumber is up 142% compared to this time last year.
And we were saying this 2 years ago as why we were having issues with inventory. Lawrence Yoon talked about the exact same things, labor and lumber, and now it's even worse.
Now it's even worse. So we're seeing a lot of new construction coming out of the ground. It's starting to help bridge the gap between the low inventory that we're experiencing and delivering product to buyers. What you're finding now is the prices of new construction are outpacing the prices of resale. So although when you're struggling to get your buyer into a resale home because there's 10 offers on the property, you move to new construction, you pick a lot, you build a house, they get to move in 8 months, those prices are now causing buyers to wonder, should they be buying new construction because they get a better value in the resale market. So just a little something to think about. But if you do have a buyer that's really struggling to get an offer accepted, try and take a look at new construction and open up their search parameters, because there are a lot of buyers that are walking into those sales offices with their agent. They're picking out a lot, they're building a home, and they're not in a competitive situation. But gosh, you drive down to Castle Rock, I was doing that last week, and it's new homes from the 500s, new homes from the 700s in Parker, new homes from the 900s.
You just drive down 25 and look
It's
left
just,
and right
yeah,
towards Castle Rock, and it's just blowing up.
so new construction is going to help with that inventory, you know, bind that we're in right now, but prices in new construction are going to be a lot more expensive. So my 3 pieces of advice. I'm hearing a lot of grumbling out there when you go to schedule showings. 30-minute windows, no overlapping showings. My buyer wants to see 3 properties on Saturday. I can get into one of them at 11. I can't get into the next one till 3, and the final one isn't available till 7. I'm showing houses all day long. How do I manage that? Advice: try and plan ahead. Talk to your buyer and find out what days and times they are available so you can premeditate how you're going to be scheduling these appointments. I know every single day my buyer can look between 4 and 6. Whether there's a new listing that hits the market or not, we have a standing appointment between 4 and 6 o'clock. When a new listing pops up in their portal and on my radar, I schedule that showing between 4 and 6. I consult with my buyer. Do you want to see this house? If the answer is yes, I got it. I've got it blocked off already. If you're showing on weekends, schedule their showings as far in advance as you can. And if you have to cancel an appointment or move an appointment around, at least you've got it blocked off, because some of these you can't even get into. So really, really figure out what days of the week can your buyer look, what time frames can they look, and just pre-schedule those appointments the second those properties hit the market. First one that jumps gets in. Highest price isn't always the best offer. So look at Elevate. Listen to our Tuesday talks. We've got some great strategies, some great tips on how to make your offer shine, because everybody is doing the same things in their offers right now. Appraisal gaps are no longer something new and exciting. Escalation clauses are no longer that exciting. So if you haven't listened to Amir with Own Home Loans, Equity's in-house mortgage company, his Monday mortgage minutes on appraisal waivers, I highly suggest you listen to that, because that is something that is new, and it's something that is exciting, and it's something that will set you apart.
Yeah, you can win.
We
can win.
So I will give a little plug for Amir, and then I'll dive into my last couple tips of advice, because
we're gonna have to save your advice for Tuesday talks. We're coming on our hard break here.
He had a buyer of mine pre-approved and ready to go. We lost out on a couple of offers. My buyers were getting frustrated. They found a house and they said, Stacy, we do not want to lose this one. I called Amir and I said, we can't lose this one. And he said, let me see if these buyers qualify for an appraisal waiver. And I said, what is this appraisal waiver? I had never heard of it before. Anyways, watch his mortgage minutes, because it was phenomenal. And that is the one reason why my buyers won in a multiple offer situation. So
she's got a couple other good tips. We're going to save those for Tuesday talk. So those of you like, oh, what are they? Show up on Tuesday. I don't want to keep you guys hanging out here. We've got a couple other things to hit. Thank you very much.
Yes,
great
absolutely.
Information.
There's your statistics.
Yep, love it. Go back here to my little share. Market update. Did it. Award winners. My gosh. Yeah. I mean, we just talked about the stats. I mean, just killing it out there. You guys are just so busy and amazing. This month's off the chart right now. But let's go through and congratulate people here. Our top sales agent, Joyce Hatchin, with $2,083,000 in sales. Congratulations. That was 2 transactions, so 2 nice transactions. Sandra Shaler, 5 transactions. So she had the most transactions. This is the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
crazy.
here.
Yeah. So we're just going to keep on going. Mindy Sanders, 4 transactions. Kathy Harder, 4 transactions. Lori, 4. Lori Sanders. Sorry, I know her so well that I just want to say her first name. Lori Sanders, 4 transactions. Eileen Kitko, 3 transactions. Casey Ofog, 3 transactions. Deborah Mowens, 3. Kristen Wiley, 3. Mark Baker, Buddy, 3 transactions. Midge, 3. Oh my gosh. Allison Lashmet, 3 transactions. Rick Lee Pollock, 3. Stacy Schuster, look at that. You're even selling houses. We refer most of our business, but sometimes they just won't go somewhere else and we have to handle our own business. So congratulations.
Thank
you. Will Davis, 3 transactions. Tanya Brown, Power Pro, 2. Aaron Moore, 2. Greg, 2. Greg Tiffin, Joel Pavalis, 2 transactions. Jonathan Holm, 2. Caitlin Tran, Reagan Grant, Melissa Yerkes, Rocio Cantelli, sorry, Rocio, Don Cassidy, Denise Dixon, Derek Dannenbaum, Kelly Hepker, Nick Korn, Priscilla Welch, Stephanie Fauhauer, and Brooke Van Havermat. Wow, guys, congratulations to everyone. I mean, what a fabulous month you guys had in August. I mean, that's just awesome. Really proud of everyone. Paul will send you off your electronic certificates so that you can, proudly promote those on your social media. And again, our lunches are still postponed. I was hoping to hear something from Scott that said, "Oh, I was out with the governor and kind of." No, we don't.
No.
We're not hearing anything. So sorry about that. As soon as we can, we will. The party's just going to get bigger and bigger, as I keep saying. Whenever we can actually get together, we will celebrate for sure. If you have new listings or coming soon listings, please be sure to post those on Facebook. I mean, we definitely, we need to know about them. I mean, you guys know how hard it is to find properties right now. So please share with us quickly.
Yeah, and if you have virtual tours or links through RE Colorado, post them in the comment section here in the Facebook live feed. So anybody who's watching the sales meeting will have access to those. And then of course, post them in the general Facebook group.
Yeah. Wow, we went a little bit over. I apologize for that. Paul, you got anything before you
You
wrap?
guys crushed it. Taking in the stats and great job to everybody. I just want to say that to everybody from me. You guys are crushing it, and we're here.
I mean, this month, I think we've already had like 45 closings. It's the 9th.
Yeah.
It's the 9th.
You guys are doing great.
Crushing it. So I keep saying, make hay while you can. Get out there, do business. Scott alluded to it. We don't know what the future holds. We do know that there's a lot of issues out there. We know there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of people that are unemployed. There's a lot of people that are hurting. Yeah, the stock market's doing good, real estate's doing good, and things can slow down, and they will slow down. So take advantage of it now. Yep. Be busy. Do the things that you need to do by touching base with people you know, staying in contact, letting them know that you're the trusted advisor, that you're the person that knows what's going on. You have your pulse on the finger, or your finger on the pulse of the market. You know what I'm not hearing much about? I'm not hearing much about Zillow. I'm hearing about boots on the ground, us, the real people who are connected with the community are doing the business. I'm not hearing that people are out buying homes online, sight unseen, without real help. They really need you now more than ever. Yeah. More than ever. So be sure that people know that you're out there and you're willing to help and you want to help. So.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this month's meeting. We really enjoyed having you guys all here. And of course, we are always available on the support line. So anytime you need us, give us a call,
for you.
Shoot us an email.
And we miss you guys.
Yeah,
and
we do.
Hope, be safe, be well, trust us. We miss you. We want to see you in person as soon as we can. But until then, we'll keep doing what we're doing. And
every morning I wake up and I think we are one day closer to being able to see everyone in person. One day closer, and that gets me out of bed. So
thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Tuesday for the next few tips that Stacy has. Have a good one.
To be continued. A cliffhanger.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, you guys. Have a great week.
See you, Paul.
Stay warm.
See you later, guys. Have a good day.